Hey folks, Roland Martin here, broadcasting live from Sacramento, California, where I'll be holding a School Choice is the Black Choice Town Hall. A little bit later, there will be live streaming, but coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered for this Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. The Supreme Court heard arguments today over the issue of a citizenship question on the United States Census. Critics say this is about keeping white people in power as the nation becomes more black and brown. We'll talk with Kristen Clark, the president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, about this critical case and what the impact could be. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi moves closer to calling for the impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump, a big shift since yesterday. Also, another GOP power grab, this time in Kansas, all about the issue of voting. Yeah, but also in Kansas, they want to strip the power from a Democratic governor. No shock, the Republicans are trying to use voter suppression and voter intimidation. 2 cases of racism called out and punished. One, a United Airlines customer service worker. She was charged with disorderly conduct. And the other, a school resource officer. He has been fired in Virginia. We'll give you all those details. The American Heart Association wants African Americans to be heart healthy, and they're spending money to do it. We'll talk about an HBCU initiative that they are sponsoring next week that we will be broadcasting from in Greensboro, North Carolina. So look forward to having that conversation. And also, the often untold story of successful black businessmen and women is the subject of a new PBS special airing tonight. We've got a preview. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Hey, folks, a huge case before the Supreme Court today. Oral arguments were heard over the question of a citizenship question on the United States Census. The Trump administration has been lying repeatedly about the origins of that. They have been sued. They have been losing in federal court. Now it goes to the Supreme Court. Joining us right now is Kristen Clark, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. She joins us by phone. Kristen, obviously this is a huge case. The Trump administration, as I said, they've been lying repeatedly as to the origins of this, and now they're literally trying to pimp the Voting Rights Act, saying that's the reason why this question needs to be on the census?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest cases of the term, perhaps the biggest blockbuster before the court. Argument went longer than typical, as opposed to an hour. They spent an hour and a half today on a case that's a huge racial justice case, because it will have significant implications for black and brown people across our country. What they're doing is, what the administration is doing is, they've resurrected a citizenship question that goes out on the short form that goes to every household in the country. This question, the citizenship question, hasn't appeared on the form since the Jim Crow era. So we're talking in more than 6 decades, the administration has not done this, because the people who test what discourages people from responding to the census and what doesn't have repeatedly, over and over and over again, said that this will depress turnout and participation, and we don't need it, frankly. The goal with the census, it's not a political test. The goal is simple: to capture a full and accurate count of the population, and that data is used to disperse billions of dollars to communities that go towards building schools, building hospitals, maintaining roads and bridges. I mean, this is the lifeblood that communities turn on. At the start of a decade, you figure out how you allocate those federal dollars. And if communities fall short, if people don't participate, then communities won't get the fair share of allocation of federal funding that they deserve. So I was in the court today for the argument, and, I'll tell you, it was very discouraging because Wilbur Ross, who heads the Commerce Department, added this citizenship question out of nowhere at the 11th hour. He said that, hey, the only reason I'm doing this is because the Justice Department asked me to, and they say they need this to enforce the Voting Rights Act. Number one, we know that this Justice Department hasn't brought a single voting case and, in fact, promotes voter suppression and celebrates it. Number two, we uncovered a trail of evidence in the course of our litigation. We, at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, sued the Trump administration over this and uncovered documents and emails showing that Chris Kobach and Steve Bannon had their hands all over this and really pushed and lobbied the administration to add this question. And number three, they did it over the objection of scientists inside the Census Bureau itself who said, if you do this, it will harm the census and jeopardize our ability to get a full count. And all of that evidence did not seem to persuade, Justice Roberts and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch today. It was incredibly discouraging.
And Christian, when you look at some of these arguments, first of all, this voting rights argument is just truly nonsensical. You make the point about how they have not brought a single voting rights case, and the fact that did any Supreme Court justice bring up the fact that Wilbur Ross has repeatedly lied about this?
He repeatedly lied. He went to the Justice Department, to low-level officials, and said, hey, don't you guys want to ask for the citizenship question? And we literally uncovered documents where they said, this is not our issue, and it's kind of a bad time for us. We've got the whole Comey thing going on. So then they went to DHS, who turned them down. Then they went back to the Justice Department to Sessions. Sessions was still AG at the time and said, no problem. Happy to ask for whatever it is that you need me to ask for. So there's a whole trail of deceit and lies, and it was very discouraging to see the court turn a blind eye to that today.
One of the things that's interesting, they also heard 10 minutes of arguments from the House of Representatives. That's pretty interesting and doesn't necessarily happen all the time.
It is. I'm not sure. The main thing that we needed to show in the court today is that Wilbur Ross, lied about why he needed the citizenship question, and secondarily that this question is one that will jeopardize the 2020 census. This is literally an attempt by the administration to hijack the census at the 11th hour in ways that will harm African Americans, Latinos, and communities of color. I'm going to remain hopeful. We have 3 federal courts who have all struck the citizenship question down. I hope that the Supreme Court will do the right thing and affirm the rulings of those 3 lower courts.
I'm reading this last question for you. I'm reading this Politico story. They say, at what point Roberts faulted Ross's critics for suggesting that the conclusions of Census Bureau statisticians were the only factors Ross could properly consider in making this decision. You have a lot of back and forth going on here as well. And again, your sense, obviously, who do you think is going to be the critical vote here? Earlier, when there was a decision to halt a trial, they chose not to. Roberts went along with the liberal justices, but Alito, Gorsuch, as well as Clarence Thomas would have halted the trial. So is the real issue here as to whether or not Kavanaugh and Chief Justice Roberts are going to align with the 4 liberal justices? Is that what we're looking at here?
Justice Roberts has, from time to time expressed concern about the reputation, the standing of the court, the integrity of the court. And to me, if that's true, this case will be a test of his legacy, because we have a case here that is built on deceit and lies, a record that shows deceit and lies by the Trump administration at every turn. And for Justice Roberts to turn a blind eye to that, I think, would be incredibly telling. I have little confidence that we'll get Justice Kavanaugh or Justice Gorsuch's vote in this case. They really stretched and went to extreme limits to ignore the record in this case, going so far as to point to Spain, Germany, and other countries that do ask the citizenship question at some point in their census. Those are different countries, different contexts, different constitution. So I think it really will boil down to Justice Roberts doing the right thing in this case. I hope that he will. This case has grave implications for African Americans and people of color all across our country. We deserve a fair census, and we deserve a shot at making sure that our communities get their fair allocation of federal funding at the start of the next decade.
And of course, we have absolutely no faith whatsoever in Clarence Thomas ruling the right way on this one. Kristen Clark with the Lawyers Community, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. The citizenship question itself originated with known white nationalist and former Trump advisor Steve Bannon. This is all part of the Republican strategy to preserve white power, again, in the face of the browning of America. And that was a protest outside the Supreme Court this morning. Here is some of that video.
There are approximately 4.2 million black immigrants, and roughly 10% of black people living in the United States are foreign-born. Since 2000 alone, the number of black immigrants living in the United States has risen 71%. Black immigrants should respond to the census, have a right to respond to the census, and help our communities get our fair share of the more than $675 billion a year in federal funds spent on schools, roads, public works, and other vital programs. The administration's push for a citizenship question is part and parcel of a clearly racist scheme of undercounting immigrants of color, including black immigrants, to deprive us of our communities of resources and representation. In the same way that the strategies of gerrymandering and redistricting based on race suppress the electoral power of communities of color, chilling the participation of immigrants of color in the census effectively safeguards the political power of so-called white population.
And of course, not only does the census determine the allocation of more than $600 billion in federal dollars, it also determines which states get more or less seats in the House of Representatives. And of course, that impacts the Electoral College. This is likely to shift more power to more rural white parts of the country as opposed to those urban parts. I want to introduce to our panel Malik Abdul is Vice President, Black Conservative Federation, Reverend Shane Harris, founder of the President People's Alliance for Justice, and Kelly Bethea, communications strategist. To the panel real quick, I got to deal with this issue, and that is this elections have consequences. And again, Malik, what we have here is Wilbur Ross repeatedly lied over and over and over again as to the origins of this. Who can actually trust this administration when they say anything when he has been busted lying?
Well, to the point of the actual question, I don't have a lot of strong feelings on that. I do know that question, the citizenship question, was asked. I think it was prior to 2010 on the longer form that they passed around, and I think that actually went to about 1 in 6 households. And now that question, I think, is also asked on the American something survey. I can't think of, maybe ACS or something, and I think that goes out to about 1 out of 30 or so households. But I don't have any strong feelings about that. I don't think, obviously, that it's the racial intent that many people are suggesting, but I'm sure that there are many people who will disagree
yes,
with
it
that.
is.
Yeah, but I don't have any strong feelings about it, and if they choose to add it, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I'll ask Reverend Shane Harris. Reverend Shane Harris, again, what you have an administration where you have white nationalists, we see their attacks on immigration, and this is a part of that pattern.
Yeah, I think, Roland, and thank you for having me. It's good to be on with the other guests as well. I think that this is nothing more than what you call suppressing and intimidation, and suppression intimidation at its finest. I mean, when you look at this dynamic of trying to question someone's ability to be counted based upon their citizenship, I think that it is, and it hasn't been a question this long. This is something that they're just trying to bring up and turn over and deal with in the Supreme Court. I think it is nothing but intimidation, and it is nothing but trying to leave communities out who would be counted, who would be involved in being counted. We know that being counted has more to do, more than just voting. It has to do, as Ms. Clark was saying, with hospitals and resources going into certain communities. So this is nothing more, Roland, in my perspective, than a way to intimidate and suppress the involvement of certain communities, particularly communities of color, where you're going to find a lot of the citizenship conversation in. And it is nothing more than to try to leave them out of the process, not just of being counted in the vote, but also being counted in resources. And that is causing real concern to us. In the
Kelly, bottom line is we can't trust anything that comes out of Wilbur Ross's mouth.
I mean, not only can we not trust him, we have proof that we can't trust him because he lied and he tried to use those lies to substantiate the claim that you need this question on the census. But to Malik's point of other organizations using citizenship on their forms for counting people and what have you, I don't want to say that those don't matter because they do, but the U.S. Census is on a different level. So when you put that on there, like my panelist, Reverend Shane, was saying, you are essentially taking away dollars from black and brown people. You are taking away federal funding from black and brown people. And my other concern with this is, what are they going to do with this information? So, for example, if somebody, a person of color, is saying, no, I'm not a U.S. citizen, is ICE going to show up at their door and say, you know, because you're not a U.S. citizen, are they going to snatch them? Because they're already on, you know, this rampage right now where they're doing such things. Now you have a situation. Yes?
No. Finish up. Go ahead. Finish up.
No, so you have a situation where, you know, people don't feel safe because of a form asking them something that, frankly, is none of the census's business, because you have other ways of getting those that information.
This is all about Stephen Miller, Stephen Bannon, and again, their constant attacks on people of color in this country. Let's go to our next story. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said late this afternoon that Donald Trump is an existential threat to America, and Democrats may have no choice but to proceed to impeachment if that's where the facts lead. She was facing increasing pressure from her Democratic caucus, Democratic presidential candidates, the Democratic base, columnists, pundits, and lawyers, including some Republican and conservative lawyers and legal scholars. It is not a full-throated endorsement of impeachment, but she's moved a lot closer since last night. Also, the Trump administration has defied Congress when it comes to turning over Donald Trump's taxes. They now are asking, so they've blown past the date. Now they're asking to say we need more time until May 6th. You also have Congressman Elijah Cummings, who says he may hold the White House in contempt because they are refusing to allow an individual who gave the security clearance to Jared Kushner to testify. The White House says he can only testify if there's a White House lawyer present. Cummings says this makes no sense. The guy says, I'm not going to testify. What you have here, Reverend Shane Harris, is obviously a standoff. The Trump administration is thumbing their nose at the oversight of Congress. They do not want the Democrats in the House to have any hearings, don't want any testimony. And what Trump is saying is, the hell with the Democrats. We won't even bother. We'll ignore everything, and we'll just simply sue them back and tie them up in court. That's what he is known for, his legal shenanigans, and that's what he is doing right here. He is thwarting one of the three branches of this government.
Yeah, no, you're correctly right, Roland. This is nothing more than the president using his historical tactics. Remember from his days in New York, this goes way back. You sue me, I'm going to sue you and try to suppress this for a minute so I can get out of my way. But the president should realize something, Roland, that we all have to realize. You are going to have to face a judge. You are going to have to face your wrongdoing. And I think that Nancy Pelosi taking this stance one step closer to the conversation on impeachment is strong, because many of the younger Democrats and a lot of the young Dems who have been in there pushing, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, now it's becoming reasonable. And that is what they're afraid of, is that the unity of the Democratic Party to now call into question not just the president's taxes and what went on there, and there's a reason why he's trying to suppress that. He doesn't want people to see where the resources and the money and his exchanges with Russia and some of the others, which is believed to be historically have been. But he also does not want Mueller to come in and question to be questioned in regards to this. He doesn't want Mueller to be questioned. So I think that this
Malik
is
here.
really.
I'm going to quickly go to Malik here. Malik, I got to ask you again. This is an administration that refuses to let Congress do what it is supposed to do. They do not want the House Democrats questioning them on anything. And to say that a former staffer can only testify if a White House lawyer is there, otherwise he is not going to show up, guess what? Democrats should be throwing around contempt of court and, frankly, throwing them in jail if they do not want to participate in a House hearing.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what the precedent is for them saying that the White House lawyer has to be present, but you know, this is,
they don't care about precedent.
I doubt that there's any administration that would be so willing to work with Congress on much of anything. To the point about the tax returns, I personally don't care about the tax returns. I don't care about whether it was Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. I don't care about a president's tax or even a candidate for presidency. I don't care about their tax returns. I think that any information.
But what you have here, though, is a man who's lying. A man who says, oh, I'm constantly under audit. So what? His audits never finish?
Yeah, well, again, if we were talking about Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, I still would not care about their tax returns. I think
but Malik, we're not talking about Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama because both of them revealed their taxes before they were even elected, while they were running. Obama revealed his before he was even elected.
Right.
So that's not even the issue because they had the decency to do what other candidates have done, and that is reveal their taxes. Why is Donald Trump so scared of Americans knowing what's in his taxes?
Well, I don't know. I don't speak for Donald Trump, so I don't know the answer to that. But what my point is
you know the answer.
But I'm bringing up Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama to show you that I consistently do not care. I do not care.
It's irrelevant.
Well, you can't say that it's irrelevant to you. I personally do not care about any candidate's tax returns. I think we can get that information.
You're focusing on taxes. What about the guy who gave Jared Kushner his clearance? Why shouldn't he testify before Congress?
Again, I don't know what the precedent is for that type of action. I'm assuming that there must be if he's going to decide not to do it. But personally, I don't care if the person testifies or not. I just don't care about it. And I wouldn't care.
So you personally don't care about any of it, Kelly?
I wouldn't care across whether it's Democrat or Republican.
You've already stated you don't care about any of it. Kelly?
Well, we care about a presidential candidate's tax returns because it showcases the integrity, financially speaking, of said candidate. We don't want any evidence of corruption or, collusion, what have you, before the person becomes president, which is why this is important. So that's the reason why we want to see Trump's taxes. That's number one. Number two, the reason why we don't have a precedent for this situation is because we've never had this situation. We've never had a situation where a White House staffer gave somebody a clearance that wasn't supposed to have a clearance and they had to go to Congress to, clear their names, what have you. It's just unheard of. That's why there's no precedent. But what is supposed to be happening is that if Congress calls you for a hearing, or they subpoena you, you need to show up. And if you don't show up, you should be held in contempt. That should be the next step regarding this committee. And whatever happens after that, let it happen. But the start is to hold them in contempt so that we can actually hold them accountable.
Well, and I just want to add.
Well, in fact, we have now check this out. The White House will block Don McGahn from testifying before Congress, and he no longer even works at the White House. Why are they so afraid of staffers testifying who don't even work there anymore?
Because obviously something happened. And I'm not going to speculate as to what happened, but something happened. And something, you know, as Donald Trump has said, something bigly happened that they do not want to come out. So, you know, they're doing their due diligence in terms of not having that come out wrongly. However, they're doing it. But it's going to come to light eventually. They're just stalling, and they consistently move the bar in terms of what the threshold is to, you know, not get something done that Congress is demanding them to get done.
Yeah, and
so I take it, Malik, you don't even care about Don McGahn testifying, right?
Whether done, I don't know. Are they exerting executive privilege? Is that what they're doing? Because I'm not familiar with it. Is that what they're doing?
Well, actually, it's a little hard to exert executive privilege when the testimony has nothing to do with the president.
So he's tested. Well, I don't know anything. I don't know about why he's actually testifying, so I really can't comment on that. But if he's supposed to testify, then he should testify. I don't know how the White House would block him from testifying if that's something that he's willing to do, because it seems as if he can do that on his own without the president.
Because the White House is trying to block any current or former aide from testifying.
Right, but
that's
it seems
how
like
they roll.
it's that. But isn't it McGahn's choice on whether or not he testifies?
Well, you would think so, but the White House, according to the Washington Post, they got their story about 50 minutes ago, says the White House will fight tooth and nail against any key aides appearing before the House who work there now or who used to work there.
Well,
so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me that a White House is pushing back on their former staff or current staff testifying. That right there doesn't surprise me.
No.
But if that's something that he wants to do, I can't imagine why Don McGahn can't do it.
No. I mean, come on. This is not just any White House. This is Trump. And Trump historically has been the type of person to cover up, go back and cover up. He doesn't need any more Omarosas out there spreading information about what's really going on the inside. Information about all of the cover-ups and all the lies that are going on inside the White House. So in an attempt to cover this up, he would call different folks to the table and say, do not go out there. He would try to compress people who have left the White House. He would try to keep good terms with them because he doesn't want any more of the secrets that have already gotten out of this White House getting out.
Well, I just don't think that that's something that's different from any other administration. Yes, this administration.
Oh, it's way different.
Well, no, this was a lot different from any other administration.
I don't know if I can't say that that's true, and I don't know if anybody here can say that any other White House but Trump would be willing to cooperate with Congress. We already know that there's.
I would dare say, in our lifetime, Nixon looked like a highly ethical president. All right, folks, let's talk about a couple other stories on our radar. Racism called out and the racists being punished. Case one, a United Airlines employee at Houston's Intercontinental Airport. This woman, Cecile Hughes, approached the United employee and asked for a refund code. According to Hughes and two witnesses, the United employee, Carmela Devano, called Hughes a monkey and a shining monkey. Devano has been charged with disorderly conduct. United says Devano is not servicing customers now, and an internal investigation is underway, which could result in her losing her job. Second case, this is the one we told you about last month. Remember Daniel Morley? We saw him introduce himself as the new school resource officer in a 22% black county in Virginia. Press play.
Hi, I'm Officer Dan Morley. I'm going to be the new school resource officer at L.C. Byrd High School. I grew up in Chesterfield and graduated from James River High School in 2006. I want to ensure that the children of this county get to have the same safe childhood that I did growing up.
Well, folks, guess what? Turns out Morley was actively involved with the white supremacist group Identify Europa. His white supremacist activities were uncovered when a hack exposed the group's chat logs. Last month, we told you he was suspended pending an investigation. The investigation is now over, and Morley has been fired. I keep saying, Kelly, all these racists out here, you know what? If we just keep putting them on blast, what should happen, every time one gets fired, we should send black folks there to apply for their jobs.
I couldn't disagree. I think it's interesting how this keeps happening. Not interesting in terms of, I find it like some experiment or whatever, but it's just, if you have a job that is client-facing, such as a police officer, such as a flight attendant, or any of these other occupations in which these people get caught, and you have a racial bias against a customer, or, you know, could have a racial bias against customer, you should not be in that job, period. No cultural competency class is going to help you. No racial sensitivity course is going to help you. You having black friends is not going to help you. You need to find another job that is not client-facing, whether it's a police officer, a teacher, a flight attendant, what have you, because that's something that is innate within you that is not going to be changed within the trajectory of your career, such that it will not eventually come out in your job and your work.
Malik, bottom line is this here. All these people who keep acting a fool, I appreciate it because this is exposing the bigots left and right.
Absolutely. I think they made the right decision. They did the investigation, and they're letting him go. And probably what I would think is that right now there are people who are involved in doing a lot of digging. I don't think that there's a new phenom with people being who they've been all of their lives, if you will. I just think there's an effort now to really dig into people's past to see where they are. We know that that's the same thing would happen with Ralph Northam in Virginia. You know, I don't know, and I've asked people, you know, before, I don't know if, you know, because he posed in blackface, I don't know what those policies are that he took, you know, that to the detriment of black people. I don't know if that actually exists, but the offense of being in blackface, you know, this is something that's, you know, it seems to be people are really digging into people's past to find these type of things. I don't think that there is a new era of this going on in the country.
Oh, no. I know, first of all, that there are people who are a lot more open and bold than Shane, and they have no problem even acting in the ass, even when recording on video. So what you're now seeing is the things that black people have been saying for years, it's now being recorded, it's now being exposed. Now you have individuals who are being busted in chat rooms, even private chat rooms. So technology is actually exposing these racists.
Yeah. Yep, agreed, Roland.
Shane?
I mean, it's like when Rodney King happened and you know, police shootings had happened or police misconduct had happened prior to excessive force, but Rodney King really woke the world up because that video that came out really brought in a new era of putting on tape what was already going on and the bigotry and the hate that is already there. So I think across the map, when you look at all of these instances, yes, people are becoming more strategic into digging into people's past. Yes, people are getting more insight and information about where people were. And I do believe, you know, I'm a preacher. I believe in redemption, but I believe in redemption by accepting the sin, accepting the mistakes that you have made and making transformative changes toward the future and using that past to build a brighter future in our communities. A lot of these folks, they walk in with the same kind of involvement in the race and the hatred and the bigotry, and they bring it into their new spaces of employment instead of using that to change and bring changes to society. So they're not only saying that this is who we used to be, but they're saying this is who I am right now, and they're saying it wide in the open on camera.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to a break. When we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we'll talk about the American Heart Association, an initiative that they are launching with HBCUs. We'll tell you about all of that next. Back in a moment. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, folks, heart disease and stroke are leading causes of death among all Americans, with heart disease being number one. The risk is even higher for African Americans, and the reasons vary. Poor food choices, limited access to healthy foods, and a lack of education about what you should and shouldn't eat, to name a few. The American Heart Association is launching a strategy to work on community-based solutions by offering funding to entrepreneurs, HBCUs, and businesses. Take a look at one of their campaign videos. All right, folks, joining us right now is Pamela Garman-Johnson, the Vice President of Multicultural Markets for the American Heart Association, and Tanya Odom, Senior Consultant for the Future Work Institute and co-author of Evaluation in the Field of Education for Democracy, Human Rights, and Tolerance. Certainly glad to have both of you on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Pamela, so I want to start with you. Obviously, you know, we hear about heart disease, hear about in terms of how critically important these issues are. Let's talk about this HBCU initiative. What exactly is it the American Heart Association is doing by trying to connect directly with HBCUs?
You know, Roland, we are working with HBCUs to recognize the age organization. But if we are able to put resources in the community, then we can uplift those solutions that those young, bright people in these very important historical institutions can make impact. And so we want to work alongside them to drive that type of.
I think it's a couple of things. Just listening to a couple of the other guests you had on before, people are addressing the issues that they're facing, right? So disparate outcomes in terms of healthcare, health access, access to healthy foods, as you mentioned. But what this is doing is actually going to HBCUs and taking the sort of, as Pamela was saying, innovation, intelligence, and new ideas that are there and helping to solve issues within our communities. And I think, when you look at issues of equity, that's the way to do it. It's really looking at some of the systems that haven't always given people access to things like this accelerator program, which has funding and opportunities to really get your idea out there and working for different groups of people.
Okay. Do we have Pamela? You still there?
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Okay, there we go. So, yeah, that audio sounds a lot better. So Pamela, obviously, when you look at the numbers, African Americans are more impacted, more so than anyone else. And so, have you seen the results of targeted programming that has been able to impact the numbers and how they impact African Americans?
Roland, that's a very interesting question because we launched the campaign back in 2008 where we were specifically focusing on African Americans. Over the course of 5 years, we saw a reduction in the number of people that had a stroke as well as death. Since we moved away and had more of a broader approach across the country about all, we have seen an uptick in both stroke and heart disease, specifically with African Americans. So we know that when we have a very targeted strategy within zip codes with specific populations, we can make an impact. That's because we're all rowing in the same direction. And especially when you have limited resources, you can't spread yourself so thin, you can never, ever move the needle. But when we're all taking our little bit and being able to pull it together, it makes a lot. And then we're all rowing in that direction to make an impact. So we directly see the impact of that. And that's the reason why we are partnering with HBCUs. We know that there is the ability to work as a collaborative, work alongside HBCUs and other organizations to make an impact in our community.
And Tanya, at the end of the day, when you talk about where do you apply resources, it should be going to the area that has the most need.
Absolutely. And it should be going equally to those areas, right? One of the things Pamela and I talk about a lot, and we talk about in the Diversity Leadership Committee, is these accelerators are sort of incubators for people who don't necessarily have access to the funds, to the resources, to the ability to get their message out via social media in a good way. And I think one of the things Pamela, talks about is these accelerator communities. We've seen people, even if they may not win, quote, the top prize, get access to funding or get access to sort of opportunities to expand their ideas, to go in front of other sort of VCs and to be able to move their idea.
I want to bring in my panelists, other panelists here, and so Kelly, Malik, as well as Shane. And so, Kelly, I'll start with you. Your question. Go. For Tanya or Pamela.
For either person, I just wanted to know how you're going to link your mission regarding the HBCUs with food deserts, because my understanding, especially with rural HBCUs, there aren't a whole lot of places to get fresh food and the like at an affordable rate. So do you have a solution? Are you working towards a solution for that problem?
Kelly, one thing that we have with the accelerator is able to think a lot of solutions that allow for transformation of food from urban centers into communities that are rural. So, for instance, in Dallas, Texas, with one particular church, they were to work with farmers in rural communities in order to provide the transportation needed to transport food where our food a lot of expensive within transportation. And so we can look to how we create new businesses, even around transportation, of transporting food from one place to another. It's a huge opportunity for an entrepreneur to come in to solve that problem. We've actually seen that. Same thing even in urban centers. People think because you live in the city that you have access. But most people that are in urban centers, especially those that are in under-resourced areas where they are living in a food desert, then they may have to go they may have to take 2 or 3 different buses just to access food. And so we've actually been able to, even in the Baltimore area, work with a grocery store that actually provides the opportunity to use mobile kitchens, teach people how to utilize the food. Then they created an app for them to be able to order their food and have it to order and delivered to them. So they take the transportation piece out of it altogether. So if you just think about those different types of models that are in the marketplace, being able to accelerate that through these accelerators and giving venture capitalists the ability to fund those, enable us to be able to scale that both at the rural level as well as in our.
Malik, your question.
Actually, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Kelly said. In my area, I think we have about 80 or so thousand residents, and we have one grocery store. So the idea of food deserts is really a thing. But one question that I wanted to ask is whether or not, for either of you, what has your relationship or, efforts been as far as contacting the administration? I know that Jonathan Holyfield, I think he's the executive director of the White House's HBCU initiative, and also our Surgeon General, Vice Admiral Jerome Adams. I know he's really been pushing a lot of healthy initiatives just really related to black people. So I just wanted to know what has been your success in reaching out to the administration to get some support on this.
I'll speak to this at a very high level because the American Heart Association is a nonpartisan organization. So we work with all administrations. So our CEO, Nancy Pelosi, has worked very closely with the Surgeon General as well as our Chief Science Officer, specifically around those policies that disproportionately impact people of color. So, for instance, we look at nicotine, we look at sugar-sweetened beverages, and knowing that advertising disproportionately is to those that are black and brown, and that
It's on her though.
So here's the deal. I'm having very choppy audio with Pamela. So I'm gonna do this here. Shane, last question, if it can be for Tanya, because Pam's audio is really breaking up. So Shane, your question for Tanya.
Yeah, so Tanya, there's a gentleman named Ron Finley out of Los Angeles, here in Los Angeles, who actually had to get an ordinance change to grow fresh food. How are you all looking to partner, with, I know this is an issue across the map because I've heard it in other cities. How are you all looking to deal with this issue and ensuring that these ordinances in different cities are changed so that folks can actually have access but grow fresh food?
Yeah, I mean,
Got it. Tanya, go ahead.
Better than I would answer it from American Heart perspective. But what I can tell you that I do know just from my work with the American Heart as a volunteer is that's where some of these accelerators come in, right? The American Heart is so
All right, then. So we were having some Skype issues there with Tanya and Pamela. First off, so let me let you know, folks, that on Monday, we're going to be broadcasting live from Greensboro, North Carolina, where the American Heart Association is going to be having a competition there, 5 HBCUs competing for grants on this very issue. So we look forward to broadcasting from there. So we want to thank Pamela and Tanya again. Sorry about the audio issues there, but again, glad to have them on the show. Folks, tonight, I'm going to be live tweeting a PBS documentary that, of course, directed by Stanley Nelson that deals with the issue of black entrepreneurs, black men and black women over the course of history. It is called Boss, The Black Experience in Business, the Untold Story of African-American Entrepreneurship. It is an amazing, amazing documentary, a 2-hour documentary. Here's a preview.
We have always moved forward because of successful black entrepreneurs.
I was sitting there where black people were not sitting before.
Literally, black entrepreneurship has meant freedom for black people.
I realized at one point, yeah, I could actually run this place.
I would just like to show America what we can do.
All right, folks, it premieres PBS tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. And again, I'll be moderating a live Twitter chat while it is taking place, along with Stanley Nelson, Mark Anthony Neal, and many, many others. And so the hashtag is BossPBS, BossPBS. All right, folks, our final story. I think all of us on this show and watching this show know that slavery was never romantic between white folks and slaves, ever. But apparently that was not the view of the genealogy company Ancestry.com. Here is an ad these fools put out.
Abigail, we can escape to the north. There's a place we can be together across the border. Will you leave with me?
Uncover the lost chapters of your family history with Ancestry. Get started for free at Ancestry.ca.
Now, I want y'all to think of all the steps it had to go through to get this despicable ad on the air. Someone had to have the idea. Someone had to write it. Executives had to approve it. A video production company produced it, and executives approved it after it was all done. And lawyers, of course, also had to check it out. Where in the hell are the black people? Shane, I want to start with you. Final comment about the story here. Talk about idiotic. How in the hell does anybody with a brain approve this ad?
Well, this is like a question that we've had, Roland, about a lot of other companies who just don't get it. In some cases, Roland, they think even because they put a black face in a high space, that those folks are going to be educated enough to articulate the analysis of what they're putting out or what they're producing. And here we go again with a company that once again says that they had a vetting process, or they may have not, or may have had a vetting process, but black people. people are not in the conversation and are not a part of that vetting process. And I think that this is really a space where those of us in the civil rights community really need to take a real look at this and dealing with our communities. Many of our folks in which go to Ancestry.com instead of depending on our own, even some of our own Black-owned Ancestry.
So first of all, we have AfricanAncestry.com, so we have them. So, I gotta go to Kelly again. I don't have much time left. Kelly and Malik, both of you are communication specialists. Clearly, Ancestry has no idea how to communicate.
Not a clue. And when I first saw it, I was like, so he was slaver, then savior, then redeemer, and now a love interest. It was very confusing. But regardless, this just does a disservice to whomever actually researches history after us, right? Because we already have the problem of white people taking out the real story regarding enslavement in our history books and courses and curricula and the like. Now you're having it in our media, and that's just a problem, because while I may know what the real story is, or you or Malik, what have you, our children may not, because they're getting it from us, or frankly, their teachers. So this is definitely a problem, and I don't know who was on that team. Obviously, it was more than one person, but all of them just need to go.
Yeah, Roland.
Malik, I understand Shane's point about having some black folks in the room. How about some white folks with a brain?
Yeah, you know, I felt like somebody read Octavia Butler's Kindred and just totally misinterpreted the entire book. I think this insensitivity comes from the same place, or misunderstanding, ignorance, or whatever you call it, comes from the same place as those who try to romanticize the relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. She was not his mistress. She was a slave. So let's call it what it is, you know, and I think this just comes from the same place. It's ridiculous. I'm glad they pulled it.
All right, folks, so that is it for today's show. In 3 hours, first of all, again, in an hour, we'll be live tweeting, starting the live tweet for the PBS documentary, Boss. So again, hashtag BossPBS. So I look forward to you on Twitter. But also, in 3 hours, we're going to have our live stream of the School Choice is a Black Choice Town Hall from Sacramento. This is the state capital of California. You've got legislators here who want to cap charter schools, who want to stop the growth of charter schools, led by the California Teachers Association, which to me is pretty dumb, because if it's about educating our kids, you should be trying to, say, have more options for folks who are sick and tired of schools that are failing our kids. And so I'm going to be moderating this town hall at St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church here in Sacramento. If you are here in Sacramento, love to see you come out tonight. And if you can't attend, of course, you can watch our live stream as well. All right, folks, don't forget, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, all you got to do is go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, join our Bring the Funk fan club. All of our fan club members get a special promo code. If you're using Cash App, do us a favor. You need to include your email so we can send you the promo code so we can provide for you discounts to books and other things that we have on our website. I'll be announcing those things very, very soon. Again, you can use Cash App, you can use Square, you can use PayPal. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. What we're asking is $50 for a year. You can give monthly. If some people if you want to do continuing giving, that's great as well, because every dollar you give goes to support this show and the great work that we do in educating our audience and talking about issues that you're not going to see covered on other networks. All right, folks, I've got to go. Y'all be sure to have a great day. Thank you very much to Shane, to Malik, and Kelly as well for being on our panel. I'll see you guys tomorrow from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. I'll be back home. And then Thursday, we'll be in Virginia Beach, Virginia, as well with XQ America for their broadcast. And then, like I said, on Monday, Greensboro, North Carolina. Lots of things happening on the road here. All right, folks, y'all take care. Got to go. Holla! Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.